going to make a quick introduction here to Daniil. First, just a quick note is that Katia, who we were hoping were going to be joining us today, unfortunately, or not unfortunately, I should say fortunately, recently had a newborn and is currently on maternity leave. So we will not be having her join us today. So Daniil will be taking over everything for us. Daniil has worked as a C-level director and head of product at several startups and scale-ups of companies from 10 to 2,000 people, leading teams of up to 30 people and seeing companies grow from $1 million to $2 billion in valuation. His primary focus is on product growth, mobilization, and experimentation. Daniil is also the co-founder of Ahead of Product and can be found advising early stage startups, speaking at various EU conferences, and of course, working in product. With that, I'm going to pass over to Daniil to share screen and we'll get going on things.
All right. Thank you for a lovely introduction, Scott. We have a 1-hour webinar today. We have several parts in the agenda, so we are already in the introduction. After that, we're going to touch base quickly on the definitions of the product manager versus a product leader, how we like to set the scene so that we're all on the same page. The main part is going to be the complexity framework, which is the main body of the webinar. How can you approach leadership in product in a practical way? And I will, in this case, explain you the framework and then the case study to illustrate how this framework can be applied in practice. As usual, in the end, some time for Q&A. So that's pretty straightforward. Let's jump into the content. A little bit about myself. Scott did a wonderful introduction. Nothing to add on top of that, maybe besides that I'm also working quite closely with startups and advising them on product growth. And you can see some of the company names and titles and dates here. How much I've been involved in product, and I really like the space. I think product is super fascinating, especially right now when more and more organizations become product-led and product-driven. It's just really great to be in the middle of so many things that are happening. It's super exciting. It's also super demanding. And once you step back and think about it, you start to ask yourself a question like, how am I actually achieving results? And this is the reason why Katia and we came up with this framework, what it means to be a leader in the product space, and what can you actually do today to start acting more like a leader without waiting for the title or a promotion to a director. So to set the scenes, let's maybe talk about the definitions. And we like to talk about it in the metaphor that product management and being a PM is feeling often like you are in the water and you have direct access to a lot of things. You can feel them, you can touch them with your hands, and you can see a lot of stuff happening around you, and you're in the middle of everything. You can really touch those fishes, you can see through the depths, and you see some, I don't know, there are so many objects under the water, and you're completely immersed in what's happening right now, here and there. Because it's water, it's not so much visibility, and it's more on a touch and feel kind of basis. And that's how we understand the product managers. And of course, you see those like headers that we're working with the teams, discovery and delivery, short-term roadmap and vision. That's basically the bread and butter of the product managers. But when you think about product leaders, and once you transition to product leader, let's say it mindset, doesn't have to be a title, the overview is different. Those are the people who are spending the majority of their time above the water. And now they have a very long distance overview. They can see 360 and they can see other ships. They can see obstacles. They can see other people and teams, maybe competitors. They can see different islands and markets, and they can also smell things. They can see things. They can hear them. All of those senses that are kind of impaired in water are now unblocked. And product leaders trade this for not being able to touch that many things and influence them directly, but they're really good at navigating the space, and they have this good overview and 360. So product leaders define the ways of working. They work on processes, vision and mission, company goals, target personas and markets. All that is usual scope of a leadership in product. So I think there is no surprises here, but the main secret is that product leader is not a title, it's a mindset. So we recommend to approach it in a way that it starts really with you, that you can do it already today. And the only thing that you need is a structured approach to that. Like, what exactly should I be doing every day or every week to start acting more like a leader and eventually earn this promotion and be qualified for this position? Over time, we have come up with a complexities framework, which is combination of our experience, myself coming more from B2C and growth, Katia is coming more from B2B and enterprise. Together, we observed very similar things and patterns, and that's what we are going to be giving to you. It's like an overview, super simple framework. You can explain it to your friend or colleague in 5 minutes, I'm pretty sure. And I think it's going to be very helpful for you going back to your space. So if you work, and like we work in every product area as a PMs or product leaders, we receive new things on the table. And sometimes it feels like they're dropping like Tetris pieces from the top. And you sometimes get new customers and they're demanding something. Then you're getting new features that you delete and deploy. Then you have to sort out the strategy. And at some point you have entered new markets. After that, something else changes, and maybe you go and you release a new product line, and then you have new teams that are joining or teams that are leaving, and it might feel like that. You could feel swamped under all of those pieces. They're falling on top of you. You have to deal with them at the same time. Everything is a priority. It's very difficult, and that's a natural tendency of any product area or product space. Those items, those pieces, we call them complexities. They always appear. That's a fact. The trick is, how do you actually work with them? And if you're just reacting, that might feel like ending up in this setup. But if you're an experienced product leader, you actually know those pieces and you know how to work with them. You know how to move them, how to rotate them, how to discard them, how to delay them. And if you're quite experienced and efficient, your space is of course going to be very neat and look something like that. This metaphor helps to highlight our understanding of product leadership, that you want to go from this mess to this order. And you can do this by identifying those pieces, which we call complexities, and making things a bit more manageable, which we call reduction of complexities. It all starts with the same step. You identify this complexity, and you start to approach your process or what's happening around you as the solution. So you start to think, okay, what is coming to my view? Is it a new stakeholder? Is it a new team? Or is it a new cultural change or a strategic change? How can I make it better? How can I untangle this mess? And of course, those complexities, they don't come alone. It's idealistic to expect that only one thing is occupying your time right now. It's usually 3 or 4 or 5, 6 of them at the same time. And complexities, they come in different sizes and shapes, but still some of them could be categorized into very similar names. We call them stakeholder complexity, knowledge management, team management, and culture. Could be also scope, delivery, and depending on your business, maybe you're a founder and you're talking with investors, or you just acquired another company. Those complexities, there are like endless variety of them. The most popular ones are, of course, connected to the stakeholders, to your team management, to the knowledge and metrics and measurements. Those are what we face with the most every day. The goal is to understand that as an inexperienced or a junior product leader, you probably can tackle only one complexity at a time. If you are moving up the career ladder and you get more experience, of course, you can deal with 2 or 3 complexities or even 5 of them if you're an executive team. Because you have a lot of experience, you know how to actually operate with them. So what we recommend to you, and what is the goal of this webinar, is to embrace this framework of every product area is receiving those complexities over time. They appear and they complicate the space. And it's difficult to work in this space when you have a lot of complexities. To act as a product leader, you need to identify those complexities and reduce them, simplify them, take them apart, and make the process better so that the teams or your team are empowered and are efficient in this new setup. That's the main algorithm. To illustrate that, because it's just super theoretical, we're going to go through a case study. So now we're moving to the second part, and that part is going to be a little bit of interaction. I'm going to be asking you some questions, and I would like to see how would you approach specific decisions or like problems, and see what the wisdom of the group comes up with. So don't hesitate to just type something in the chat. Maybe Scott, you can help me out to see the answer from there. And let's go to the case study, and we're going to be talking about a stakeholder complexity. So the stakeholder complexity, this is my case. I had this story last year, 2021, when I was working at Tier, which is a micromobility company. And it's very similar to Lime and Spin for US users. For European people who are joining, you probably have seen our scooters standing on the street. So you just download the app, scan it. And I've been working at this company, and we had a very interesting setup with our growth team, who are responsible for expansion and commercial growth. And this is the case study that illustrates like how to work with a difficult stakeholder. And I think a lot of people will see familiar moments. Something will definitely resonate with you. And let's get started. Whenever I face with any of the complexities, I always have the same script, how to approach it. The first line is more or less a discovery process. The second line is more like a delivery. In the discovery, you definitely focus on finding the complexity. And maybe let's go directly to the next slide. You find the complexity, you give it a name. Once it has a name, you can talk about it with other people, and you can ask, hey, what are the symptoms? What are the problems that we observe? Once you have this list, you can drill down and identify what are the contributing factors that are making this complexity happen. And once you identify that, you find the people who also suffer from the same complexity, and you assemble a team. It could be you and maybe 1 or 2 more people. 3 of you would be working on this complexity to make it happen, to make it lower. It should be a cross-functional effort. You're not just improving the space for yourself. So it's much better to pair with someone else who is just, as I said, suffering from the same problem. So that's the discovery part. The complexity that I'm bringing right now as a case to you is I had the promotion to head of product to be responsible for the monetization space. Right now, it's just one team, which is my team. I have some designers and engineers and analysts, and we want to scale it up into 3 product teams. Our products that we develop in monetization for this micromobility provider are being used a lot by expansion teams and growth teams to serve our customers and ultimately drive the revenue, because scooters are a hardware product. There is a physical object, a scooter, that people rent out. The app, the software, is just an enabler, but the main value is the ride itself. So the growth team and expansion, they're using our products to monetize the hardware. The growth is reporting to Chief Commercial Officer. I'm reporting to Chief Product Officer. We don't have a lot of commercial understanding because we're coming from the product background, which is normal, but they don't have a lot of product skill because they're coming from commercial background, which is also very expected. And of course, as a team that is very close to sales, they are extremely pushy and they are demanding when it comes to roadmaps. So probably you've seen similar setups. And my goal back at the time, 1 year ago, was how might we develop a win-win relationship that we combine the both of best worlds? We have the customer feel and we have the commercial sense, and we are maximizing the revenue, and we also solve the customer needs. After setting this context and understanding that we have a complexity in our relationship, I went to people and started talking to them. Hey, what do you think is not working right now? We ended up with its list of symptoms. I'm probably not going to read all of them. You're going to get the slides. You can also follow it by yourself. But the majority of the things were like the constant pinging on Slack and email. Hey, what's the progress? When is the release? How was it working? Because of that, we had endless number of chats and direct messages. It was completely unstructured, and everyone wanted to get more information. Because of that, we were stuck in meetings. There was a sync with this person, then with another person, with a third person, and you just repeat the same stuff in every meeting. It was not optimized at all. Things that really pissed me off were that sometimes growth would make very wild decisions and say, hey, we need this feature. It's going to be a deal breaker. If we have this solution, it's going to be amazing. Please do that as fast as you can. We're going to win and we're going to earn so much money. We, of course, do that because we are collaborative. And then this feature doesn't work and kind of grows at, oh, must have been bad timing. It's bad implementation. We had bugs. The design was not ready. And they're kind of not owning the idea itself. And we know that we did our best to deliver that. And it's kind of not nice. I don't know. It's not like they're doing something bad. It's like, it's hard when things don't work out. We just say, yeah, okay, it didn't work out. Let's move to the next one. For us, we invested time and it was a favor. So it was kind of a friction point between us. So that was the overall symptoms that we had identified in a group of people from the product side, from data, from design, also from some of the growth. They said, like, we don't have enough transparency. And this is my first prompt to the audience, to the webinar participants. looking at these symptoms, what do you think are the main contributing factors? How could you cluster or categorize some of the symptoms, or maybe go one level deeper? What is actually driving those things, those sticky notes that you see? And it could be 2 or 3 different items that come to your mind. Please list them in the chat so we can check it out as well. And waiting for your, okay, no shared objectives. Brooke, thank you. Thank you for breaking the ice. Single source of truth, all right. Illusion of agreement. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So I see a few things about planning communication. Oh, whoa, more are coming. I love it. All right, let me read them properly. Misalignment, miscommunication, no agreement, no shared objectives. So definitely something about goal setting and sharing the stuff between 2 teams. Maybe that's about the process. There was an idea about Scrum rituals not working. No strategy in a company overall. I would think that's an overkill. The company is doing quite well, so I wouldn't say it this way. But there's, yeah, some kind of organizational trust, roadmaps. Okay, it's a good stuff. I think you're hitting either to the target or around the target. Back at the time, I have identified 3 main contributing factors. The first one is that we don't really share anything between growth and product. There is no goal sharing. We have absolutely horrible communication channels that are one-sided, that repeat themselves. They don't have transparency, no structure, and it's just not nice to work in this setup. And our accountability and distribution of responsibilities, our RACI, if you know this framework, which stands for responsible, accountable, consulting, and informed, is completely MS. Those things change on the fly. Nobody knows what is expected from everyone, and it's just not a good setup. So I thought, like, this is the core of the problems. This is what we need to solve. And my first step was to find, as I said, people who also suffer from the same problems as I do. So the first key pillar to solving any complexity or being a change agent is to find other people who suffer from the same problem and inspire them to join you and make progress together. If you think that any product space have developers, engineers, data, designers, managers, C-level, finance, legal, growth people, of course, and so on, like, you probably know what are the roles. Who would you place where? We have 4 quadrants. One is the main people, the core of the team that I would be working with, that I'm partnering with to solve this complexity. Second, I need their approval and buy-in. Third group is who I would like to monitor. And the third one, who I would like to keep informed of the progress. So drop a line in the chat again, maybe A, who would you add where? Take some time. I know it's a lot to type, so don't rush, take your minute or 2 to organize your thinking. And maybe while we do that, Scott, what do you think? Where would you place different people to fill in the silence?
Oh, that's an interesting one. I mean, I think on the get informed side, obviously the growth side needs to be in there, but you also need some partnership with them as well. So that's definitely one that stands out for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very clear. I definitely there. I also put someone from growth in the partner group.
Mm-hmm. Everybody has any other thoughts? Well, quiet in the chat so far.
It's a lot to type or think.
Yeah, exactly.
But the group is active, so I'm pretty sure we will see some messages soon. We got the first message. Perfect. So partner with a tech lead, growth person, and a design lead. Good stuff. Definitely, I can see those people working, collaborating together. Okay, maybe not to waste more time. Let's continue. If somebody has an opinion, please keep them in the chat. I also see that, again, design and engineers. For B could be the leadership, line manager, skip manager, CPO. So let's move to the next slide. First of all, in the A would be my teams and the growth teams. I didn't specify who exactly. I still need to clarify who would be where. Buy-in would be supportive functions. So we cannot do work without the data, without research and marketing. We rely on them as well. And if we change anything about our communications or decision-making process or accountability or roadmaps, they should help us out and they need to be like involved in that. And we need their buy-in that, yeah, that's how we work. Keep informed and monitor is very simple. I have my manager and their manager. We still have this distinction versus like us versus them. Monitor is their manager, because at some point I realized, and you're going to see it when we go through the complexity itself, that the director of growth is not super involved and hands-on in the process. He is more on the like strategic and planning side. And my relationship with the VP of product, which is my manager, she had a lot of trust in me and we had a very lightweight relationship. And when she heard about this project, she just said, yeah, go ahead and do it. If you need my help, let me know. But you have my blessing, you have enough influence and you know what to do. So I trust you to come up with the best decision. So that was the map. It might be completely different for you, depending on the organization and the structure. I'm not advocating that this is the only way to structure things. It really depends on what is your network, what kind of relationship you have with everyone. And it's really case by case. This is what I had last year. And this is my playing field, so to say. So the second part would be a delivery of the complexity, of the reduction of the complexity. And that's a cycle or a loop where you start, no surprises here, from coming up with ideas. You define the timeline, you execute the ideas, and then you do a retrospective. Like that's a common build, measure, learn kind of loop, but on the process side. So here again, super clear what to do. The key pillar for this part is definitely to have a very good focus, because if you are a senior product manager, you cannot really change everything when it comes to road mapping and a strategy and change how you work with personas or planning and so on. It's just not your area of influence. So understanding where you are in the org right now, what is your influence in the area of ownership, you need to tell to yourself and the rest of your group of people, what are you actually fixing, what stays in and what stays out, because you can't improve everything. It's just impossible. You are limited by time, by resources. That could be like quarters and so on. Like you really like good scoping, good focus is essential to transformation, because transformations, they should start and they should finish. If they go on forever, people get really agitated and stressed. There should be like a clear points and there should be milestones. So focus is especially important. And luckily, product people are working a lot with scoping. So that should not be a very big surprise for you. Now, looking at those contributing factors, let's call them A, B, C from left to right. In which order would you start fixing them? What would you do first and what would you do second? So drop a line again in the chat. How do you think we should approach it? Or it could be 1, 2, 3. It doesn't have to be ABC, whatever you prefer. Okay, starting from the goal sharing, then RASI, then communications. That would be the way Hannah would do that. Sneha, if I'm pronouncing your name correctly, sorry if not, would start from RASI, as I understood, to understand, like, make it clear and write it down a contract, like who is doing what at the beginning. Same with Mohit, would start also with RASI, then communications, and then the alignment. Let's see if we have another reply. Okay, let's continue. So what I decided to do, first and foremost, my approach was to start from communications. I thought, okay, we are already doing some work together, and I wouldn't be coming on a high horse telling, hey, this is what we do, this is what you do. And that to me was a little bit more pushy and aggressive. And I said, like, let's just make our communication and collaboration better. Let's start from something that is a clear improvement to both sides. That should not be a lot of compromises, because when you define the roles, somebody will be unhappy or hurt or have an opinion about like who's doing what. I said, like, I'll keep it for a bit later. And I'll start with things that it's a lot of my time and requires me to spend more than I want towards this. Of course, as Hannah said, depends on the team dynamics. This is just an illustration what I had in my context. It could be slightly different for you, but you should get the idea behind it. My second goal was to then go, after we fix the communication and we have a success and a win in our relationship, to understand what is the split between our responsibilities, like what is doing growth, what is doing product, when, who's like making which decisions, and so on. And once we aligned on the decisions, let's agree what are the goals. And once we have good communication, good responsibilities, probably we're going to be achieving the goals with good probability of success as well. So this is how I decided to approach it, step by step, with a good focus, starting with communications first. Once you do this, the third pillar for change agents is to have good transparency. If you're introducing change and you say, I've been working for 3 months on that, now on Monday we start with a new way of working, here's the slides deck, please read it, be aware, and we start on Monday, that's going to be the disaster. Like, people will push back, they will resist, they will ask questions, they will be unhappy, and like, that's not how you do change. Proper transformation requires constant communication, and you need to communicate frequently. And also remember that you're talking to people with different level of immersion. You might be talking to a team who's really in the water, or you might be talking to the leaders who have a bird eye view. And you need to adapt your content, your goals, and the channels that you're using to the audience. With some of them, you might be using a one-on-one conversation. With others, you might be sending a slide deck. With third, it could be a video update, or it could be just one sentence on Slack, something like that. It's key to have constant communication, because if you change something and you communicate and talk about it every few days or every week, it feels like evolution. If you do it only at the beginning and at the end, that would feel like a revolution, and nobody likes that. So especially in agile companies, please talk more, over communicate, that will pay out. So that was the setup, how I approached this stakeholder complexity that I had. And now let's see what was actually the delivery part. How did I move from month to month? What were my ideas and what actually happened in reality? We're going to see a lot of sticky notes, and if you have questions, feel free to drop them in chat. We will have time for Q&A in the end, so I'm just going to go through that. And the first opportunity that I had in this complexity, as I said, my goal was to scale the teams. I needed to have a second team. So I found a really good person in the growth who by chance wanted to move into product and become a product manager. And I said, okay, I'm going to support you, and I'm going to make this transition happen. And for me, it was great because I got a PM. It was also great because that PMs come from growth, so we can build a bridge between our teams. And I never planned for that. And it was just an opportunity. And you will see through this case study that a lot of things that happened, or some of them, are opportunities. And a good leader can recognize those opportunities and use them when time comes right. You can also create those opportunities if you want, but in general, not everything comes according to the plan. It's good to have a plan, but a lot of times things just happen by yourself because you're not alone in the company. So this is what I did, transition my best partner from growth to product. And then I started to working on my product group strategy. Like, I have several teams. I need to know what they're going to be doing, how to structure them, and so on. That is more about the shared goals, or at least the goals of my teams. But I wanted to give it a kick-starting, so at least my side of things are in good shape and order. So it was a very slow start. This transition took place. We discussed a lot, and developing a vision for my group of 3 teams also takes time. So this was a February, March kind of kicking off and getting up to speed. In April, we hired the second PM for my teams. That went really well. And then I made a decision to replace our endless one-on-one calls with a group call. I talked to the growth teams. They were quite supportive of that, and said, like, instead of having 5 one-on-ones, let's just have a group call of 45 minutes, and we're going to discuss everything there, and we're going to keep notes. It's going to be all cool. I will lead this call. I will do the notes. You don't have to do anything. So I made it very easy for them to accept this change, and so, like, leave it to me. It's going to be nice. If you don't like it, we can always revert back. And this is a technique that I'm using quite often. I'm just saying, hey, this is an experiment. Let's give it a try. Don't like it? We'll go back to the old ways. No problem. Let's just try it out for 1 month. I get their buy-in, and we start doing those group calls. The reality is the constant pinging and like, what's the status, instead of Slack messages and emails, now lives in a call. And I said, okay, I guess this is as good as it can get from the first try. I'll have to deal with that, but it's still there. After that, the growth team has a new team lead. Again, it's unpredictable factor, something that I cannot control, but they hired a person, and I will have to work with this person much more closer, because the director of growth is a very strategic and hands-off, not so much immersed into our roadmaps, weekly business sprints, and so on. Like, that was for him too much details. So I'm asking now in this call, growth, what are your updates? And this is my testing the water about like also responsibilities, because we always report on what product is doing, when is the new release, what is the new design, how the features are performing, and so on. And just I said, hey, growth, how about your expansion? How are your campaigns running? How do you monetize the features? What's the feedback from the customers? What do you know? And I tried to equalize our exchange of questions and demands, so that not only we are on the receiving side, but they also need to account for some of the actions, which sounded to me like a very mature way of doing things. And after that, I don't know if it's a coincidence, it paints a bad picture, but this director of growth kind of starts to skip the majority of the meetings and goes into Notion page or Google Docs or email kind of communication, just high level, dry metrics, but not so much into discussions and planning. So it's like, okay, I guess that person really wants to go away from this area and not interested, or doesn't like it, or doesn't like me. Don't really know right now. Still a mystery, but I have this new growth tech team lead, and I'm going to be working more with this person. So, okay, that's going to be my main partner in crime. So we are renaming this group call from just product growth weekly something into a monetization forum, because my group of teams is called monetization. And I'm saying that we have this success with the 45-minute call. We are discussing agenda, but I see that we not only report to each other, but we have a lot of discussions and we have a lot of brainstorming sessions, and they are very, very valuable. So I decided to rename the group call into monetization forum and extend the agenda. I said, we're going to have a first block, which is the reporting line, like what are we doing, what is in the cooking, what's next releases, what is planned, and so on, as we did before. The second block, half an hour, going to be a show and tell, where anyone can take the scene and the microphone and they can present something for feedback. This is the brainstorming kind of part. And that could be a design. If we are prototyping something, that could be experiment results and learning. That could be maybe an expansion plan. So from both teams, we could also have guests that are coming from data, for example, to talk about KPIs, or maybe a researcher would be presenting a results of their user research. And we have a half an hour slot during this forum to all educate ourselves about the space, which is called monetization. And the last slot would be dedicated to reviewing KPIs and our goals and metrics, looking at funnels and conversions. So we're starting developing a strategic outlook on what it is, the monetization space itself. So this was my initiative. I renamed the group call, extended it, made it bi-weekly, so it happens every 2 weeks, not so much of a time eater. And we continue with this call. During that time, in June, the company is kicking off a Falcon project. That's another unexpected thing that I didn't know would happen. To give you some context, micromobility is a very seasonal business. Everybody loves to ride a scooter when it's 30 degrees and it's sunshine and it's summer and it's really great outside. And of course, nobody rides the scooters during the winter when it's dark, cold, and it's raining or snowing. It's just not cool. So Falcon project in June was a mega big initiative to win the summer that we have in front of us, which is actually already started. And the C-level came up with it. They said, you're going to get extra budgets, more developers, more designers, more of everything. Pick all the low-hanging fruits and develop the best product experience that you have to boost our summer numbers, because summer is when we get 40% of the yearly revenue. We protested, saying that if you do it this way, there is no guarantee that those features are going to work. We need to do discovery. We need to do research. Where is time for that? It's already June. Why haven't we started in May? Like, please don't expect us to make any uplift. And we think it's a bad idea. Like, it's against the product principle of doing dual agile, doing discovery and delivery and continuous research. Like, it's hard. We don't like it. That was an initiative from C-level. They pushed for it, saying, sorry, that's a decision made. Investors are on board. We are doing that. So we have the only thing that we can do. We commit to Falcon, but we really use this as an opportunity together with the growth team to define who's responsible for what. And we say, okay, guys, since we are not doing any discovery, we cannot be responsible for ideas and the features. You have an understanding what is missing from the markets, and you are eagerly providing us a backlog of summer initiatives. We're going to accept it, and we're going to do the best that we can to deliver them. But the outcomes and the results are going to be on you. You're going to approve all the designs. You're going to approve the user experience and say, yeah, this is what we wanted. This is working as we expected. And then we'll see how it works. We are just here helping you and supporting you because those are not our initiatives. And this opportunity was never on my map or radar. I didn't expect it, but I tried to use it to my advantage to, again, stabilize and balance the responsibilities we have between product and growth, and to go away from product is just a feature factory. And I knew that if those backlog, the summer backlog, would work really well, that's a success. Growth is very smart about their things. We are executing on a good level. C-level is happy. Investors are happy. It's win all over the place. If it doesn't work, that means we need to reevaluate our setup. And I positioned product in a way that we cannot be blamed 100% absolutely that it's our fault. Yes, we contributed to that, but it's not 100%. It's maybe 20% or 30% because we're not doing any discovery. So that was a nice opportunity for me. We started doing this Falcon project, and at this moment, my VP of product, the manager who supports me, with whom I have a really good relationship, goes on a sick leave. So that's important to know. It started in June, and we go to the second summer month, which is July. I keep driving the forum. Everything is going there well. People like the format. We focus on Falcon as we agreed. We commit to that. And I realized that during this communication for the last 2 or 3 months, that the growth team lead that joined, and who is now my main partner and contact point in growth instead of the director, is such a cool person. She is great, smart, open-minded, has a lot of product instinct, and is like completely on a different level. That's nothing that I have experienced so far. Such a great hire, really good colleague. And it's such a surprise from the universe that she started to work with growth with me. It really simplified a lot of things. We hire the third product manager. We kick off the third team. VP of product is still on sick leave. It's now more than 4 weeks, and she's not coming back. And it appears to be something that is for a long time. And I realized that, okay, I would need to go through Falcon on myself, and it's a critical time. I'm not sure. I have a lot of like imposter syndrome. Am I doing the right thing? Am I pushing? Am I really fighting the right battle of these responsibilities? So difficult, but that's the reality. I could not predict everything that's happening in your life. Let's go to August. This is the third month of summer and the end of the summer. Well, September still counts, but that's the second half already. We are delivering on 80% of the Falcon, and unfortunately, we're delivering on that only in August. And as you know, July and June are also summer months, and they are already gone. But that's how product work. You cannot just build a feature and deliver it in 1 week. If you have a backlog of 15 summer initiatives, some of them, especially the big ones, will be delivered in August. And that's maybe obvious to a lot of people, but not to everyone who worked in our organization. So we deliver a lot of stuff, almost everything. And we ask for the numbers after, like, closer to the end of the August. Hey, how is the Falcon? And unfortunately, we plan to generate around 10 million of extra revenue from all of the Falcon initiatives. And I think we ended up with something like 2 million only. And I think we broke even with external contractors and developers and designers who we pulled in to the tasks, but it was not a wonderful experience and a successful project that everyone wanted it to be. Still, good results, extra revenue, but not the way best of doing things, considering that June and July and August were quite stressful for the product teams. And we were working in a regime and a mode that we are not really used to work. We like talking to customers and doing discovery, doing experiments and validation, and really narrowing on the customer problem. We didn't have time for anything like that. So that's the August. Falcon is unfortunately a big failure. So I said, okay, guys, let's not do it like this anymore. Let's become scientific and data-driven. Let's pull in data and develop a KPI tree so we understand our levers, our drivers, and pressure points that we can utilize both from growth and from product to really make impact on our metrics and our business outcomes. We do that together with the data team. And I invite the growth to plan together the next 2 cycles using this new approach. Let's do it product way. Let's do it discovery based. Let's do it scientifically based on numbers, run experiments, and it should be much better. And we are not risking anything. The high season is already over. I'm just talking about 2 quarters of the low season where nobody is driving. So it's a very safe way, a safe time to experiment about the process and way of working. So I invite them saying, hey, monetization forum was very successful. Falcon was not successful. Let's give it a different option. And I had more leverage because of those things that passed historically, they were in a way that this sounded like a very good idea to to growth from our side. So we do that. And we kick off with a shared workspace, and which is really important, we do everything together with growth. It's not like product is going back saying, no, don't touch anything. You're not gonna get closer to the roadmap ever. We do that together. We make a workshop, we invite data and research and product and tech and also growth and maybe marketing, and start coming up with ideas. What are the problem spaces? What are the customer problems and what are the customer segments? How this translates into business outcomes? What is the evidence? How can we test this evidence? And only then in the end, we come up to features. So we start from the customer problem definition, which is really awesome. And this, everyone likes this workshop. It's so much fun. It's very visual. We done it in Miro, was all remote, good progress. Like everyone is happy. And still my VP of product is on sick leave and it's been already more than 2 months. Sounds really, really bad. Like we like she's alive, everything is fine, but she's just not able to go back to work. And we like all are having a lot of questions. We don't have any answers, but the reality is we don't have a strong leadership in this moment right now, which sucks. September, autumn, I work on the next year strategy for my monetization group. How can I expand it from having 3 teams right now to more teams? And VP of product comes back from the sick leave and resigns. Unfortunately, she said that it was too much. She reevaluated her work-life balance. It was too demanding, too hard, and she says like not feeling like she wants to come back to that. And we have a gap in the leadership right now. Well, all right, that's a reality. I pitch instead the strategy not to my VP of product, but to the CPO, which is very scary. It's a high level, it's an executive with a lot of experience. We are a company of around 700 people. We are around maybe 15 product managers in total, 5-7 designers, researchers also maybe 5 people. So that's like a good experienced person from the industry, like awesome track record. And this is maybe not the first time we're talking to each other, but it's still, I'm insecure in this moment a lot. And CPO said that, yeah, it looks really good. I like your plan. Let's give it a try. And I was so relieved talking to another product person on a high level that can support me. And like the last 3 months without having any support from VP of product was very tough. Now it's a big difference. And of course, like C-level cannot be involved in our like sprints and roadmaps too much, but still it was very nice to talk to her on a high level. I suggest a new team layout. How can we improve the org? And we agree with the CPO that there are 2 more teams that are moving to my place. One of them is the sign-up experience, and the other one is notifications experience, so that we have the complete overview of the monetization, which included like pricing, subscriptions, and payments, but also beyond that now sign-up and some retention mechanics. We like CPO is riding this wave of change in the org, and she decides to agree with the chief commercial officer to restructure the growth team and move them closer to the product, because our collaboration was working quite well during the summer, although the results and the outcomes maybe are not on the paper, but still it's a big difference in what we had a year ago and what we have right now. And she said like growth definitely should be much closer to product, and we're moving growth teams to report to product completely into the CPO org. And together, because we now have product and we have growth and we have sign up, activation, retention, subscriptions, and payments, we are forming a new department, which is called a product growth, and we live happily ever after. So that's the end of the stakeholder journey that I had. If you remember, it all started around February with a very slow start in the beginning, lots of stuff happening during the summer. Many times things were like a curveball that I did not expect. And I just went with the flow. It was a successful story. There is, of course, like a continuation, was the transformation and merging of teams is a very big and different topic. It's a story of its own. It was not super smooth, and we're still dealing with some of the merging pains, so to say. It's a new complexity of its own, but at least we went through that period on a very like successful, and it was an awesome thing. And in the end, we got a lot of support from C-level. So I'm pretty happy about how that turned out to be. So that wrap ups the case study, and let's maybe do some summary. 3 takeaways that I would like you to keep with you once you walk away from this presentation is that you don't need to wait for the title. I did everything almost as a like senior PM or just a very fresh promotion to head of, not a director, not a VP. Leadership starts with you. It's a mindset and your ability to work with opportunities and to reduce the complexities. This is what we recommend. Find a complexity that impacts a lot of people and improve it, solve it, make it better, simplify it. It's very difficult to do that alone. So we recommend to get support from your peers, maybe from your managers or mentors, and focus on an execution with 3 pillars: good focus, people involved, and transparent communication. So that's our recipe for doing change in leadership. But as you know, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Every company has a different setup. Every person has a different personality, and it's very difficult to grow with a leader. One example that I provided to you is definitely not enough. You need to understand like which changes to do, in which order, how to lead those changes, how to spot those symptoms, how to derive contributing factors, how to come up with what to do next week. It's hard. So what I showed to you right now is a preview of the framework that me and Katia developed. And now is going to be a part that's a promotional part, because we have a course about this framework. And it's a course focused on product leadership, where you're going to take a project just like this case study, a real project at your job, by identifying a complexity and going through this framework step by step with more materials, with more PDF, with more examples and more case studies from our side as well. Practical work focusing on becoming a product leader on the spot where you are right now with your area and influence. You're going to be working with a lot of engaged peers, and it's really cool to see how 10 other people are solving their complexities, so you can cross-learn from each other. And a lot of students said that the group dynamics was one of the best things in our first cohort. We have product guests and VP product speakers that are coming and sharing their wisdom. And in general, it's a very vibrant and dynamic community and a group activity that we have on Slack. So we want you to join. To not be superficial, here's the testimonials from our students. For example, Francesca from ImmoScout, she was able to change the team, the mood of the team from resign to being empowered, and delivery is finally on track, which was a big problem for their product team. Julius was working in a more of an enterprise company, and their team had a lot of stress and pressure from stakeholders. And for the first time after this course, by simplifying the complexity he had with the team and with the culture, their progress and that what they are delivering was much more visible on the company scale. And they got a little bit more recognition, more trust, and more support. And they ended up being in a better space. And Julius received a lot of credit as a person who drove this transformation. So we have more on the website. You can go there. The best part, we are inviting you to join. We have a 20% discount for all webinar participants. You just need to sign up on our website and mention in the sign up form that you've been participating in this Product Makers webinar. And we hope that this complexity framework and the practical work behind it will help you navigate your space and become a very efficient and practical product leader. With that, we are moving to the Q&A part. We have around 10 minutes. And Scott, I already see your camera back. So over to you.
All right, awesome. Thanks for that great session. It was really interesting to catch up on that and hear some of the case studies and hear particularly some of the real life in the trenches stories behind things. I'm going to just give everybody a quick reminder to utilize the Q&A. We'll gather questions there if you haven't done this on that side. And we'll dive in with some questions now as well. I'm going to post just our survey in case we get a little close on time here at the end of the session, and want to make sure we get all the feedback we can for Daniil and the team on that side around the presentation and section that we talked about today. Maybe just one question to kick things off as we wait for a couple things is I'm really curious about the visibility and transparency opportunities you had on this? You talked a lot about the process you went through, but how did the team itself actually create more visibility into this change across the rest of the organization, like create some excitement and have other people see that the change was actually occurring?
Yeah, so the way we have structured the org at Tier, we had two big branches of product. One branch was more of a core experience, how you start a ride, how you park, how you use the map, and like that's the core experience. This is what people get when they sign up, and this is what they expect, and we call it core product experience. And the second part was my area, which is called product growth now. That is everything that is not core. That's like subscriptions and shop, vouchers, loyalty, referrals, and so on. And those two orgs talk to each other very much. And we always try to learn the best practices from each other. And since we created this process, let's say maybe there's discussion groups of monetization forum. We kicked it off. Our team were quite happy that they now have a structured way of reporting back to growth. They have a place to share some learnings, and they also look at the KPIs. And we talked about it. It was easier for the teams and PMs in my group to work this way. And then they talked to the core product, and they also took over some of the best practices, and they introduced something very similar to the forum, although in a different format. But the one thing that suited and that was more focused on design critique, for example, because they're like more focused, less focused on numbers and metrics as growth, but more focused on user experience, satisfaction, and usability. So they allocated more space to that, but they took over some of the best practices. And in the end, like when I talked to the CPO and I said, like, I would like to have more teams and I have a big potential to grow them into something new, I was supported in that. So that transformation that you're doing, if you're communicating often and other teams are like sharing their experience, will give you a lot of value and recognition across the company. So whenever you come up with something crazy and exciting, you will be more likely to be supported because of that. So frequent communication by me, but also by the PMs that are reporting into me, help to spread the word and highlight this as a good story that happened in the company.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Love to hear the living examples. I think it's really important on that side. A couple questions here that came in is you mentioned the growth team was pushing the changes, but they didn't essentially result in the expected outcomes. I think you mentioned like 10 million, you ended up at 2 million.
Yeah.
Were these decisions from the growth team based on research, and in particular, like, how did you deal with that end results? Like, obviously these went to your CPO or executive team, your senior leadership. What was the kind of response around that, and how did the team adjust course on that side?
Yeah, so the process was we had a workshop with all the people, the smartest people in the company, from like markets, growth, product research, and so on, gather all knowledge in one room, sit down for 4 hours and come up with a roadmap. And then you have a quadrant like biggest effort, lowest effort, biggest impact, lowest impact. And you'd like categorize and cluster stickies, and that is the summer backlog. We still insisted that we do at least one round of prototype testing with the customer. So when we come up with the idea, we show it to some people, say, hey, how easy it is to navigate this interface. Can you reach this goal, and do some UX testing? But that was the discovery. It unfortunately relied only on internal knowledge. I think this is one of the biggest factors why it didn't work, because we are not the customers. We have 100,000 monthly active users, and 99% of them are not working in startups and not working in technology. They are moms and accountants and lawyers and dentists, and they are not like us. So relying on our own experience was an overconfidence in how, like, it's a big bias in our case. And I think that was why it didn't really work out in the end. And that was a big learning. It was not negative in terms of our, let's say, we didn't lose money. We lost potential money, but we learned a lot. And for the entire org, that started a chain of transformation that, yeah, we need to be more customer-centric. We need to invest more into customer journey, need to do more research. And those areas, they got eventually more budget for next year. So for C-level, it was a bet. It was a top-down decision, but they were experienced people, so they took it as a learning and made it better next time.
Yeah, okay, good. Just one last question here was like, what steps did you follow during discovery for the Falcon project?
Yeah, so the discovery was we get the summer backlog, we prototype, and we do one round of usability testing with the customers. That was basically the discovery. We, of course, checked with the data to make sure that this is a big enough problem on the conversion side of things. And if we improve this, it will trickle down to revenue. And we did this kind of back of the envelope validation, but it was very lightweight. The backlog was quite heavy, and the summer was already in June, so we needed to start working immediately, and not much time for discovery, unfortunately.
Yeah, obviously a bit of an impact from that, as you mentioned, but obviously some pivots that you're now recognizing the need for that further discovery and further investment in the future in order to be successful, which is great. I mean, that ultimately in the end is your product team learning. So that's, I guess, probably the critical part of it.
Yeah,
no, that's
exactly.
awesome. That's awesome. I think that's it for questions, and we've got a few minutes left here. So I think I'm just going to kick over and wrap things up. Again, thank you very much for everything today. I know it was like super valuable for a lot of people, a lot of great comments and feedback. Again, just invite everybody who did join us to share your thoughts on the event afterwards. We'd love to hear your feedback. I know Daniil and Katia as well would, and feel free to take advantage of the discount and the opportunity that they mentioned on that side. We do invite you to continue the conversation and discussion. If you have questions and things that we want to know about from this webinar, feel free to make those a post in our community, and we'd be happy to have the folks come in and answer those. And lots of upcoming events happening on this side. Matt Wallert speaking with us next week. We got Arvind Dutta coming in, Benjamin Barry, Perna Call, David Reimer, Josh Sniden, and Connie Kwan so far booked. Really, really busy quarter of lots of really interesting, critical topics on telling your story about your roadmap and your plan, communicating effectively in your organization, getting to shift that culture from outcomes to outputs, and really some fantastic topics to be covered. Lots of other ways as well to get involved in our community if you're not already part of it and doing things inside it. We've got our regular Maker Mentor program, which kicks off next in October with our next cohort or group of people. We've got our monthly roundtables as well, which are a great place to exchange ideas with other product people. We've got our Meet a Maker program, again, just an opportunity to network and connect with others. And again, these kinds of opportunities here as well to speak. You've got wisdom, you've got knowledge, you've got experiences to share from your product practices. If you're interested in getting involved, please do let us know. We'd be happy to have a conversation on that side. With that, thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. We will let you get back to your workday. And thank you, Daniil, again, for everything.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your activity in chat. And as I said, here are the links. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. Would be happy to continue there.
Sounds fantastic. Thanks again. Take care, everybody.
Have a nice day, everyone. Bye-bye.